and welcome to GameSpot's mammoth live coverage of E3 2007.
I loved E3 2007. This was probably the most fun that I've had at an E3 ever.
For me, E3 2007 is probably one of the best trade shows that I've been a part of since joining GameSpot, I think.
It's not big, it's all small, it's really empty. Great! You know what that means? That means you get to go there and play the frickin' game.
It was really easy to get work done. It was really easy to bring that content to the GameSpot users.
They dropped a neutron bomb on E3 that only evaporated all the extraneous stuff.
The weirdest thing you have to deal with in an event is a shuttle schedule, you're doing something wrong. And by wrong, I really mean right.
This year, the games were really the stars of the show, so just the whole show, top to bottom, was full of these games that just look fantastic.
I saw games this year that I would never have seen last year.
The fact is, even though the format of the show was really different, there were a lot of really, really awesome games to see there.
Stand by.
In a lot of ways, this was the year of the mind-blowing first-person shooter. You know, Sony kind of stepped it up and showed Killzone 2 actually being played. We saw someone holding a controller and moving it, and then things would move on screen.
Going into this E3, we expected that Guerrilla, the developer, was going to finally have the real game, Killzone 2, to show us, but we didn't know what it was going to look like, and we sure as hell didn't think that anything could live up to the expectations that trailer established way back when.
You know, maybe it didn't look quite as good as that trailer from a couple of years ago, but it definitely looks like a really sharp, solid first-person shooter with a pretty hot-looking battlefield, lots of action happening around you that you might not even be a part of. You know, guys shooting enemies and just kind of having shootouts in different parts of the level.
The very fact that they were even able to come close to meeting those lofty expectations is enough to warrant Killzone 2's inclusion on this list.
The first game at E3 that really jumped out at me was Call of Duty 4. They showed that at the Microsoft press conference, and you know, it's like I'd heard people kind of talking around the office like, oh, Call of Duty 4 looks like it's gonna be something special, but you know, in the back of my mind, I'm like, dude, whatever, they're making a modern first-person shooter. It's like that's only marginally better than a World War II first-person shooter. Like, how could that game be anything special? But they got out on stage at the Microsoft press conference, started demoing it, and wow.
What struck me during the Microsoft press conference is how different the game is going to be, how dynamic it's going to be. The press conference showed almost a stealth level in that you were a sniper and you were accompanied by another sniper, and you're literally sneaking through this jungle of sorts and trying to stay quiet as opposed to blasting everything in sight that we from other missions we saw of the game. So it looks like there's going to be just a lot of fantastic action in the game, but more importantly, I think there's going to be a lot of different experiences in Call of Duty 4 that make it certainly one of my most anticipated games of the year.
Well, hello, GameSpot.
And everyone's talking about Rock Band.
Rock Band. These are the guys that made Guitar Hero, and they said, well, you know, Guitar Hero is cool and all, but we're not affiliated with that so much anymore, and we're making Rock Band, which not only does the Guitar Hero stuff, but then also has ridiculous, crazy drum controller and you know, microphone that you can slap to make tambourine noises when necessary.
It just comes across as like Guitar Hero Plus.
Seems like just the next stage of evolution for what was started with Guitar Hero, and it just seems like a hoot.
The drums may actually teach you to play drums to the point that you could pick up drumsticks on a real set and lay down a beat that people would want to play music to. That is very valuable in my opinion.
Seems like one of those games that you're just going to stick with for months, if not years.
Burnout Paradise is one of my personal favorites from the show.
Number one, I like the open world aspect of it. I think it's something that was done with some degree of success in Test Drive Unlimited, but there was so much room to grow that kind of concept.
You're roaming around this open city, doing whatever you want to do. You can goof around, or you can take on races, and just whatever. And then if you want to go online, you just invite someone over to your city, and then boom, they're in there.
I think that if you like cars, if you like crashing into stuff, Burnout Paradise is going to give you what you need.
And they're even implementing the camera, which is cool. Like every time you take someone out online, like the camera will activate for a few seconds, and you get to that person that got taken out gets to kind of pose for the camera, and then the person that did the taking out saves that as like a mug shot that gets stored. It's like a little kind of a catalog of the people you've wronged over the years or something, which is pretty awesome.
The fact now that you can hook up your camera to your console and have the game take a picture of you at the worst possible moment when you crash.
And so you just get all of these like really great little reaction shots from people.
I kind of imagine this whole thing where you're on a roller coaster and you know that camera's coming to take a picture of you. People are going to do the same thing with it. They're going to know the picture's coming, and they're going to have something really interesting to add to the race.
So BioShock was GameSpot's game of show for E3 2006, and we made that decision based on kind of the promises that the developer Irrational was making about what the game was finally going to be like.
We've seen so much of it, and it still looks so good.
Watching how you can handle, all these throngs of enemies coming at you, it just looks really cool. One of the coolest parts is, for example, setting down this little cyclone trap and sending enemies into the air, blowing around and being able to shoot them down, or poisoning them when they go to get health out of a machine, sticking poison in it and poisoning them that way. It just looks like a true spiritual successor to System Shock 2, which is really what we all expect it to be.
People tend to show these games over and over and over and over, and especially with pre-E3 events, we really get saturated with a lot of this stuff. But with BioShock, it's not like that. That game looked better at E3 than ever before, and it looked pretty good before.
The game is really close to done. It's out at the end of August, so it was probably one of the most complete games we even saw at E3. We've gotten to play it on a number of occasions now. It's come together amazingly well. It looks beautiful. It's got really solid voice acting. It's one of the most unique setups and premises that I've ever seen in a game, and it seems like, from what we've seen so far, they really are delivering on all those gameplay promises they made.
Mercenaries 2, World in Flames, my game of the show, no question.
I like blowing things up in games.
They said in our stage show was that if it can't be blown up, then it doesn't go in the game.
You can call in I want to say 10 or more different types of airstrikes.
There's stuff like the fuel bomb, which was just one of the best things that I saw at E3.
I mean, that's just ridiculous.
One of my favorite moments that I saw in the game was watching somebody take a semi-truck and hitch a trailer to it. And they drove it around a little bit and then basically got into a helicopter, lifted the trailer into the air,
and then flying it over something and letting it go and then shooting a bunch of rockets at it. So you're just it's just ridiculous.
And you know what? That's what gaming is all about, is blowing stuff to smithereens.
Everything just blows up really, really well.
There was a really, really awesome lineup of games, and choosing a best of show this year was really hard because there were so many quality games on display. But ultimately, the award for Game of Show went to Little Big Planet.
I honestly couldn't have cared less before I came to E3 about Little Big Planet.
I was blown away by this game. We saw it, of course, at GDC 2007 for the first time.
It was kind of hard to get a sense for. It's like, wow, that looks like it could be really awesome.
And I finally saw Little Big Planet in person at E3, and I'm absolutely blown away by this thing.
I knew probably within 30 seconds of putting my hands on the controller at the Little Big Planet demo station that it was going to be my personal game of show.
Here they started to show the creation tools and the things you'd be able to go in and make these ridiculous objects and map JPEGs onto them or something, and just like all this different crazy stuff you'll be able to make.
The interesting thing about Little Big Planet is that half of the allure is the fact that you make the game yourself as you play it.
Theoretically, at least, really the game is kind of bounded only by the imaginations of the players.
We're talking about a game where you're creating objects from scratch, and you can do so in seconds with a really just simple, like, point and click interface.
So here is a game where me being obsessed with creating things doesn't make me the odd one out. It makes me, hopefully, someone who's going to be really good at this game.
And it has a style unlike anything I've seen before in a video game.
It looks really cute, but it's very complex at the same time.
That game to me looks as good as anything on the PS3 today.
It's a really ambitious project for as kind of like simple as it might look, you know, looking at a screenshot or a video of it. It's really crazy. And that's, I think, what really sticks with us after the show is that game just seems totally crazy.
It's stunning that 18 people could be making this game that's going to come out as a download, and it's probably the most exciting thing that's going on with the PlayStation 3 right now, if not gaming in general.
Even though there are a lot of really, really impressive games at the show, Little Big Planet, I think, really stood out for its originality and for its potential, and that's basically why it took the Game Show Award.
From everybody on this end of the internet to everyone out there for watching, thank you very much. That's E3 2007. See you next year.
The future of E3, it's hard to say. You know, it's like, I think from our perspective, the show was a success. You know, there were a lot of great games there, and we got to see them, and of course, you know, bring them to you, the viewer at home.
A lot of people were saying that this might be the end of E3, but I think that we'll see an E3 next year. I think that it probably needs to be a little bit more public-facing.
I would like to see it maybe borrow some ideas from the Leipzig Games Convention and the Tokyo Game Show, where the event is open to the public, so everybody gets to come and try out these games, but at the same time they have a day or 2 days before the public is allowed in where we, the media, are allowed to go in and get our jobs done.
It needs to just open up a little bit and make it seem a little bit more fan-friendly. I mean, these are games we're talking about. They're not NASA secrets.
All things considered, what I hope to see is something like years past in terms of the venue, and something like E3 2007 in terms of scope and focus purely on games rather than on glitz.
That's what you're here for, right? It's E3, it's the Electronic Entertainment Expo. You go here to see games, and they had the games.
That's really what it comes down to, is great video games and great coverage of great video games. And I think that this E3 had both of those. And I hope that next year's E3 does too. As long as those two ingredients are included, I don't care if it's in the desert or the forest or in a living room, it'll still be E3.
The change in format was kind of an experiment, and it's not really clear where things are going to go from here. If there is an E3 next year or some kind of major game event, you can be sure GameSpot will be covering it, though.
So there was one pretty hectic moment of the show. I mean, there are a lot of hectic moments.
Okay, well, so I lost my sunglasses at E3. And
E3 2020 will exist exclusively in Second Life.
What made me smile at E3 2007? I think the biggest thing for me was just the fact that we had such an awesome venue.
Two moments that I remember in particular from E3 that hopefully they're appropriate.
I think the story for me